Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and this is my lore master, Ruud.
Hey everybody, today we're gonna answer some questions in honor of reaching 10,000 subscribers.
That's
so
right.
Thank you all. Let's start.
Okay, the first question comes from Ona J Revert with a capital T at the end and asks, how many EDH decks do you guys have planned at the moment? Well, basically we plan a year ahead, so we should have around 12 commander decks that we have planned, but we don't have them worked out. It's more just on paper that we have an idea, about which ones could we do to make sure that there's a little bit of variety throughout the year. And of course you heard the ambulance, can't do anything about that. But usually work ahead 2 decks about, right? Yeah. And the follow-up question is, how do you test your decks prior to releasing the video? We have a couple of different ways. We start out by basically goldfishing, which is we just put the decks into our computer and then we play it against nobody. And we just see if the mana curve's okay, if the creatures are okay, if the abilities are how we expect it to work out. And then we buy the cards, then we play some more, make some last tweaks. At this stage, we're already doing it in groups with multiple different people, with different decks, budget, non-budget, and we play test a lot. That's one of the things that actually I think we do the most to make sure that our decks are good. We don't believe that whenever we think of something, the deck is going to be great. We realize that sometimes the ideas we start out with are crap, and then we only discover that once we're playing with 4 people, and then we think to ourselves, wait a second, one-on-one or when I was goldfishing, that worked really well, but when I'm truly in a multiplayer situation for the commander videos, it just doesn't work, and then we make the final changes before we make the video.
We also have some people that don't play Magic a lot, don't have their own decks, they just play with us sometimes. And the reason why we especially do this is we want to make sure we explain all the cards the right way, and we want to make sure that new people like the deck.
Now, what commanders do you guys personally play? We're actually always just playing the decks that we're testing out at that point in time, plus the deck that's going to come after that.
Yeah, but we do use the older decks to test the newer decks, of course.
Yeah,
but
correct,
we almost always play at least one new deck. So that's how we play. What we also do sometimes, just recreational, is put all the decks in a stack and we roll a die to see which deck we are going to play. Yeah. So we put down like 20 decks, and each deck is represented by a number, and we just roll a d20 and we see which deck everybody is going to play.
Yeah, no re-rolling. You gotta play the deck that you roll. How many people work in the Budget MTG crew? Well, of course, it's me and Ruud. Yeah. We're the ones who are the die-hard fanatics, let's say, who are putting our blood, sweat, and tears into it. But there's actually quite a lot of other people, dare I say our friends, I don't know if they're still our friends, but people who we have conscripted into helping us on a regular basis, especially with the testing, shooting ideas around, giving commentary on decks, or just coming by on a Friday night, pulling up a chair, grabbing a drink, and playing with us. From Dan Acton, who states that, so when are you guys going to broaden your horizons and work on other playable formats along with Commander? That's a good question. What we want to do is we want to expand into Modern. Have actual budget Modern decks, which will probably not stick 100% to the under $1 rule, probably maybe under $2, maybe just a play set of cards that are under $2. But right now we're working on a couple of decks, which we hope to be making videos for very, very soon. 1 or 2 are already done. And these are going to be, it's going to be a series that's going to be just like the EDH deck tech, commander deck tech videos, but then for Modern, and hopefully we'll have some nice competitive decks in there, which won't be too hard on your pocket.
You're not going to win pro tournaments with the decks.
But we are aiming for that if you get these decks and you go to your Friday Night Magic, you play Modern, you're going to have a good time. You're going to win some games at least with it, and it's a very nice basis, most importantly, for upgrading.
Okay, the next question. Nathan Marcano says, what is each of your personal favorite 5 infinite combos you won't believe are budget? David.
For mine, it's Elite Triton Druid, because it's an infinite damage combo, and it's also very simple. You just need 3 cards to make it work, and you just kill your opponents in one go, because you do an infinite amount of damage. What I don't like with a lot of infinite combos is when you're just comboing out and you're not really doing anything, but with this one you combo out and then you just kill everybody and then it's end of the game. So it's not tedious for other people.
Yeah, what I really don't like is when you just instant win the game. Which one I do like is Presence of the Midnight Guard. It makes infinite tokens. You can still do something about it because it's in your main phase. It doesn't have haste. It's just 2-card combo, which is insane. There's also different options for this combo to make it work. So I really like this option, making infinite tokens. I just like having infinite creatures. Next question, Joe Looney asks, what do you guys do when not playing Magic?
Yeah, well, of course we have work.
Yeah,
we're responsible adults, so we have to pay the bill. It may come as a shock to everybody, but this does not pay any bills whatsoever. We're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts, so we have to have full-time jobs next to this to pay for green screens, cameras, microphones, everything we may require, fancy outfits, you know.
We hope in the future we don't have to work anymore because of this channel, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't think so either. But we've got girlfriends which require constant attention. Not constant. This is gonna get me into trouble, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, not gonna watch this video anyway. It doesn't matter. What else do we do? We play games, not just Magic, but computer games.
I play on a PlayStation 4.
PlayStation, please send us money now because we're advertising for you.
Yeah. Of course, we do other stuff, but that's about the most interesting hobbies we have, of course.
Wow, that really does not sound very good, does it? It comes across as those
Some
really
games,
things we
playing games.
We play games, girlfriend, and work. Wow, we really got to.
Oh, we do go out. We do go out.
Hit the clubs.
Hit the clubs.
Yeah, hit the clubs. That's right. Yeah. Watch out, everybody. Anyway, all right. Let's go on to the next question. The next question is from Jorge Arturo Adolio Cascante. He asks, in regards of EDH, which commander do you think is the worst to build a deck and which one is the most broken? Well, let's start with the worst. I think one of the worst is Mishra Artificer Prodigy, because this card only makes you look for cards with the same name, artifacts with the same name, and you know, Commander is a singleton format, so it's pretty useless.
The next one we have is Hakan Strongbolt Scourge. This is really stupid. It's just a commander you can only cast from your graveyard, which it will not be in the game, so really stupid.
Exactly. Then we also have the other question, of course, is whether these cards, which cards are broken for Commander. We don't really believe that there are any commanders which are broken, especially in our budget format. You really need to build around your commander anyway, so a strong commander, it gives you great advantage, but no commander is immune to everything. I mean, Avacyn Angel of Hope is indestructible, but you know, you can just exile her, so there's no real commander to which we think, how can that card be there because it's so broken. Yeah. There are very strong commanders which are stronger than others. And Brago is pretty broken.
Yeah.
And Marchesa is pretty broken.
Yeah, in our budget, this is pretty broken, but you can make a lot of broken commanders like Azusa, the Last But Not Seeking, Azami Lady of Scrolls could be pretty broken.
The next question comes from Camden Paolucci and states, when Budget MTG Decks was created, why did you pick the $1 limit per card? Was it arbitrarily picked? Well, it wasn't arbitrarily picked. Actually, when you look at the entire repository of Magic the Gathering cards, I think about 98% of all cards are budget. There's only a very small amount of cards that are over $1. Yeah. The reason why everybody talks about those cards is because those are the only ones that see any tournament play.
Because we think a lot of people really play budget kitchen table Magic, and I think there are less people who play it professionally or with non-budget decks. Maybe they have one non-budget deck, but most people just don't spend thousands of dollars on Magic.
Yeah, it was really for us to be able to make the decision, okay, if we're going to be playing Magic so much, do we really want to put all our life savings into being able to play one deck the rest of our lives? Yeah. Or do we want to just be able to try a new deck every month? And like this, you can. So that's pretty much why we got the $1. So we could keep it budget and to make sure that we could still use most cards in Magic's history.
And on top of that, on YouTube and everywhere, you just mostly see non-budget decks. And if they call it budget, it's still a few $100.
Yeah, which is mostly not budget. Next question is from The Twisted Light. Are you planning on making videos about 2015's Commander decks and their budget builds? Personally, I think the Commander pre-constructed decks are already pretty budget. I mean, they're not very expensive. There's some really good expensive cards in there. You know, you got your Soul Rings, you got your Swiftfoot Boots, etc. So for the price, you got a pretty good deal, pretty budget build. They're relatively synergistic. Naturally, we could definitely put our energy into improving them. However, I think our time is best served by coming up with completely original new decks for you.
True. I think you meant Lightning Greaves. It's a
Oh, sorry, yeah.
But still, very good. Well, I think we're not really gonna make, especially not all of them, but it could be in the future we will make one of those commanders into a budget deck.
That's possible.
Which has a good flavor about it, which we think would be really nice, but we're not gonna improve all those decks. The next question comes from Bart van Puijenbroek. It's a Dutch guy. What are the best commanders? And then he asks for fun play and for winning.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's a good question. I think we'll ask the second question first. For winning, I think so far we've established that Brago and Marchesa are powerhouses. Really, almost to the point where we don't really play test our new decks with them anymore because they're just almost impossible to stop. So we play test with most of the other decks, and sure, new decks will also win against them, but it's mostly a political thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to which decks are most fun to play, I think that really comes down to your own taste, which you're in the mood for. I think for Ruud and for myself, one day we may really like playing Voltron style, another day we may really want the tokens, another time control. So what you're in the mood for, that deck takes the best, which commander is the most fun to play. Personally, right now, if I'd say, what do I enjoy playing right now? I would like to play Scion of the Ur Dragon. Why would I really enjoy that? Because I like the idea of having a toolbox where I can just pick out every piece that I need at the point in time that I need it. So I guess Scion of the Ur Dragon I like right now.
Yeah, I think so too. If I expand on this question and see which deck I like most to play with and to play against, because with Braga and Marchesa, like you said, playing against it might not be as much fun, but playing with it is. If I would say decks would be nice to play with and against, I would say Aloro.
The next question comes from Angelo M. Will you make Pauper deck techs in the near future?
No. I don't think we're going to do that. A reason why we don't do that is because we already made our own budget rule. So expanding on another rule would be a little bit complicated. And when I'm going to advertise for our own rule, of course, is that I don't like Pauper because you don't have any rares, which means you don't have a lot of special effects. So there's not going to be happening a lot of weird stuff in your games, which is kind of lame.
It's kind of, I understand what Ruud's trying to say is that the rares really give you things that have a wow factor, and especially when you're talking about EDH is all about spectacular things, and Pauper is not. Pauper is about being able to get efficiency with these cards. You know, there's some very non-budget Pauper cards because they're just really, really efficient in what they do, but they're not spectacular, and we think that EDH is about spectacle, exciting things, battles that change and get warped. That's what EDH is. So we're not going to be doing the Pauper decks, at least not for EDH.
Okay, the next question is from Sanket Baskar, if I pronounce that the right way. He asks, what accent do you have? Well, I am Nederlands, which is Dutch.
Yeah. For me, it's a little bit more complicated. I don't know what accent I have.
Let's wait.
Yeah, this is going to take a while. I'm half Dutch, half Peruvian. Was born in Nicaragua and also lived in China and in Bangladesh. So I don't know if you can hear it, but my accent probably sounds most American because that's the kind of schools that I've been to.
Yeah, I lost him with Peruvian and Dutch.
Too complicated. Next. The next question comes from Dude My Hair Is On Fire, and he asks, what set did you guys start playing in?
Well, I started playing in Mirrodin. Then the next set is Kamigawa. I didn't really play in because I didn't have a lot of friends that did play Magic, so I really had to go to the store. And then I found somebody who did play Magic, and then I started playing again in Ravnica.
Yeah. For me, I started in M11, and it's actually this guy right here that got me hooked on the game one time when we went on a snowboarding holiday. True. And he whipped out the packs of Magic cards, and he said, I think you may enjoy this game. To which I scoffed and said, this looks like this is for kids. And then 20 minutes later, I was obsessed with the game. The rest is history. After that, of course, return to Ravnica really got me hooked completely. I have never even taken a break since then. It's been all-encompassing and life-consuming, you might say. Yeah. So I don't intend to stop anytime soon.
The next question comes from Gabriel Rocha Ribeiro. Can you pronounce it right?
Let's have a look. Gabriel Rocha Ribeiro.
That's it. And he asked, do you have any plans for cube episodes?
Well, that's a good question. We've actually started building our own cubes, and we do play with cubes, but we haven't really looked at it from a perspective of building a entirely budget cube for Budget MTG Decks.
Yeah, we already made a cube video about how to build a cube. You did do that
I
a
did
couple
that.
of times.
I remember that.
Yeah, you did a lot of cubes with that. Also like a Fat Pack cube, which you mentioned, and also cube with our more expensive cards we got from boosters.
Yeah.
But I am actually planning on building a cube using our format, but I want to make it a really good cube with a lot of...
This is the first I hear about this.
Yeah, but
I have to find out. I have to find out like this.
Yeah, you have to find out.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's it.
But he's out. He's out.
The next question comes from Ash Aman and states, what was the best set for a limited, sealed or draft game? I believe that Innistrad was very good. Very good flavor, good set to draft. Any form of sealed play was really fantastic. You know, you got your werewolves, your flip cards, very strong, very powerful cards as well. Very enjoyable.
For draft, I would say Conspiracy. Might be easy to say,
also good, yeah.
Really nice for drafting, of course. It's designed especially for drafting.
And multiplayer, which is original.
Multiplayer, yeah. It was really, really nice. And the set I really enjoyed, flavor-wise, was Return to Ravnica. Because of all the guilds, I just really liked the set. It was really easy to build with 2 colors. You could go 3, because of all the guild gates you had.
Or you go 5, obviously.
Yeah,
I
did go 5 sometimes, just
without fail. Force 5 colors, just because you could.
Just because you could. Yeah. Just because
but
it's nice.
Definitely agree. The flavor-wise of the guilds made it so easy to understand what 2 color pairs were all about. The next question comes from Jack O'Sullivan. States, Budget MTG Decks, when is episode 10 of How to Play MTG coming out? Exclamation mark. Oh, question mark, sorry.
Question mark, yeah. Well, we already did all the basics. We really have all the basics covered. All the card types we already have. So I'm gonna do that video actually. Yeah. It's about the stack and priority. It's going to be advanced rules, so you can only look at these rules, I think, when you already know the basics of the game. You have played a lot of games, I think. Yeah. And the next one, I think, will be layers, so it's also advanced. And then especially the layers about power and toughness of creatures. And then we will expand later, of course. But at first, these are going to be the first 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, so basically if you've watched till episode 9, you can play Magic. That's pretty much what it comes down to. But we will expand into more advanced rulings. The next question comes from Brazil Andre. It states, which is the best budget Tiny Leaders deck? And also says, say hello to your Brazilian fans. Hello.
Hello, Brazilian fans. Hello.
Okay, so one that I think is really strong is of course Recent Redeemed.
Yeah, pretty strong. You can do a lot with that commander, which is there are a lot, of course, I think, so we can't mention all of them, but the ones that are pretty strong because of the indestructible are the 3 mana gods. Those are Farika, Atreus, and Taza. Yeah. Those are the 3 mana gods.
Those are really strong also because they have very high power and toughness for their price. So they're pretty sweet.
The next question comes from Michal Tesnar. He asks, what is your favorite format of Magic the Gathering tournaments?
Well, of course, normally we're usually playing Commander. We like playing that a lot. But when we go and play in a shop or for tournaments, we like to play Draft and Sealed, pretty much limited formats.
Yeah, limited formats because it's really current, and I wouldn't say I don't like, but I like the constructed formats less. Because you will play against a lot of the same decks. There's just some archetypes that are always there.
Exactly.
So that's why I don't really like it. And you have to spend a lot of money to build a deck.
True. So when you're drafting, you fixed cost, you already know how much it's going to cost. Everybody starts on a level playing field, so it's a lot of fun. It feels very fair, and it also forces you to be very creative right on the spot, which of course when you're building a deck normally, constructed, you don't have that. So it's nice to alternate. That's a very cool thing with these kind of tournaments.
The next question comes from Kwartjan. He asks, do you guys run a Magic store? Very simple answer, David.
No, we don't.
That's it?
Yeah, we don't have ambitions to run a Magic store. We enjoy going to Magic stores and we purchase from Magic stores, but to run a Magic store ourselves, I don't think we have neither the skills nor the passion.
You're underestimating yourself. Okay. The next question is from Nerul PT, and he asks, do you guys consider any of your EDH budget decks 75%, and which ones?
Yeah, so first to clarify, 75% is basically this ideology that your decks win 75% of the time, no more, no less, which means that your deck isn't so unfun to play against because you win 100% of the time, but it's also not so crappy that you're losing less than 75% of the time, so you're having a good time because you're winning most of the time, but you're not creating an unfair or unfun play environment by winning 100% of the time. With that answered, I think most of our decks are actually 75%, definitely within the budget environment. Outside of that, I would still wager most of them, yes. Brago and Marchesa are one of the more broken commander decks that we've built, and those probably are not 75% because they win more frequently than that. The next question comes from Duke the Dwarf Lancaster, and he states, why do y'all take so long to make videos? That's actually a really good question. We would love to make more videos. The problem isn't actually creativity. We're always thinking about new decks, new video ideas, so that is not the problem. The problem is really time. We have, as we mentioned earlier, we got work, we got social lives, and we have a finite amount of time per week that we can spend to make the videos. Especially, we have a finite amount of time together and with the other people that we mentioned to playtest. So even the amount of time that we spend in our free time to think of ideas, to test ideas out, to write decks, to write episodes, to edit, even the things that we can do separately, are still a lot of things that we need to do together or in a group to make sure that we have a product, and in this case a deck tech, for example, that we can really be proud of and put it down and say, okay, we're really happy with this. And that takes extra time. The next question comes from Joa Pedro Aguinski, asks, what made the channel be created? Whose idea was it?
Well, it was actually David's idea. He just had a moment of enlightenment, I think. He was busy with editing other videos, editing stuff, and then he came up with the idea of a Budget Magic YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, yeah, it's actually also originally it came from Ruud because he got me hooked on the game, and I said, hey, how can I get in on this? I want to also play with you guys. How do I build a deck? And do I need to buy packs? I was a total noob. And Ruud said, you know, within our play group, we want to make sure that everybody has a good time. So we set this rule down that we're going to play. Everybody has to use cards that are under $1. So Ruud came up with that idea. He shared that with me. I like making videos. We both like Magic. There you go. The channel was born. The next question comes from Karanot. Will you make some gameplay videos with your own budget decks? Long story short, yes.
Yes, we're going to do that.
Yeah, we're working on it right now. We have the layout of what the video will look like, and right now we're still figuring out how we can best film the cards while they're on the table. We've noticed that in a lot of other videos people film it just from the side, but we can't read those cards and we don't know all the cards out of our head either, so we're trying to figure out a more clear, descriptive way to show the gameplay video so that it's very understandable for both older players or players which have more experience, and also newer players.
The next question comes from Everkun, and he asks, do you regularly play standard or draft?
Yeah, standard no, draft yes.
Same for me, we already answered it a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Abu TT, and they ask, how do you build your decks, and what are the steps and methods you use when you build them?
Yeah, very simple actually. You start with for the EDH, we start with the commander. We either pick one of two ways. We either pick a commander that we want to build around, or we have an ability or something which we want the deck to do, and then we find a commander that allows us to use those colors so that we can build around it in such a way. So those are the two methods. Then we start with, well, selecting the commander, then we split up the lands, what kind of lands will we be needing, and then we break up. It's kind of actually, you can see it already in our videos. We have the segregation of what different kinds of cards do. That is also how we start by building a deck. We have a look, okay, what does this deck have to do? Does it have to be able to do some removal? It has to be able to have some control, maybe some death touch creatures. We want to be able to flicker some stuff, and then we split that up. We say, okay, 9 of those, 8 of those, 3 of those, 5 of those, and we start building. We start putting in cards, selecting which ones are good, which ones are bad. then we have a very rough draft, play test it, see, you know what, actually 9 control spells, way too much, let's bring it down to 6, and I need some more stuff to protect my commander, let's take out these other 3 cards we don't need, now we're going to add some cards which are going to protect our commander. And like that is how the process grows and evolves, and sometimes up to 20 to 30% of the original cards are not in the final product because of how many changes it goes through.
The next question comes from Nicholas Robst, and he asks, how long does it take for you guys to come up with the deck ideas and combos?
Yeah, well, mostly for the deck ideas, it goes pretty fast because you just look at a deck, or you look in commander, or you look at an ability, you think, hey, that'll be cool to build something around. Then what takes longer is to figure out whether that's actually feasible, and then you still have to look to see whether you can make it efficient enough once you know that it's feasible. So the whole process could take about a month, maybe even longer, before you have a finished final product.
Yeah, I think mostly it will take longer than a month to have a finished deck. Yeah.
The next question comes from Nurul PT, and he asks, can budget builds be competitive?
Well, for the commanders, I would say yes. The commander is a format which really makes it possible for budget decks to really flourish. Sure. I think. Of course, when you have really professional decks, they will be stronger than budget decks. If you make one of our budget decks into a deck with stronger, better, more expensive cards, it will be a little bit better. But slightly, but not that much. For modern and
legacy, vintage,
standard, legacy, especially standard is very, very difficult because you don't have a lot of cards to choose from. But for modern, I wouldn't say it will be competitive in a way you can win tournaments with the cards, but it will be competitive in a way that you can play a fun game where you do have a chance at winning.
The next question comes from Coast, and they ask, are decks you showcase fairly balanced against each other? Will we test them against each other? So yeah, they have to be balanced, because if a deck does not beat the current decks that we have, then it's just not good enough to make it on the channel.
Yeah, of course there is a variety in how strong the decks are, but each deck can win in different setups.
The next question comes from Walker Braden, asks, do you guys watch anime? If so, what have you seen? Arvid?
I actually don't watch it. No, sorry.
No, I've watched a bit of anime. I really enjoy. Of course, well, I grew up with the Dragon Ball Z, which was super awesome in my time. Still love it. I've also watched things like Death Note, which I thought was very, very good. And I think I'm going to start watching Attack on Titan because it reminds me of the Eldrazi. So that sounds pretty cool.
I have no idea what he's talking about. Okay, the next question is from Duke the Dwarf Lancaster, and he asks, can y'all make standard budget deck decks?
Yeah. We're actually not going to make standard deck techs, and the reason why is because we want our Budget MTG Decks channel to have a timeless quality, more of a repository of knowledge and decks and tutorials which can always be used, which will always be relevant to everybody. A kind of an archive which will always stay relevant. The problem is if you build standard decks, they rotate out, which means that after a couple of months or a couple of years, whatever time frame, decks will no longer be relevant, and then you're stuck with a lot of videos, a lot of time and effort you put into decks which are no longer legal. If we put our energy into EDH, into Cube, into Modern, even into Legacy or Vintage, those decks will always stay relevant, and hence will have more value, I think, for the people who watch it. The last question comes from VZS Singh, asks, what standard and modern decks do you guys play? Well, we don't play standard, so that's easy to answer. And for modern, we play black-white tokens and also blue-red Delver. But of course, now since we're planning to do more modern budget deck techs, there's going to be a lot more coming in the future.
Yeah, we also have a red burn coming up.
Yeah.
And I did play standard once, and that was with the Return to Ravnica block, and that was an Esper deck, blue, white, black, that is.
All right, cool. Well, those are all the questions. Thank you very much for sending them to us, and we hope that this was a little bit more enlightening and that you got some insight into our lives and our thinking process. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.